What is up, guys? So today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different video. I'm going to be tier ranking all of the books that I've been reading since December 1st of 2020. So you'll get to take a look at the last 3 months and what my reading life has been like, and get to see what I thought about all of those books. So stick around and we'll get into that tier. Alright guys, I'm so excited to be doing my first tier ranking video with you, but let's go ahead and jump right into talking about these books that I've been reading. So the first book that I read in December of 2020 was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I think that's how you say her name. So this book is set in a fantasy world where magic exists, and there is an area of darkness called the Shadowfold that is kind of threatening to take over the world or their land. The Shadowfold is full of terrifying creatures called the Volcra that feed on human flesh. So there's definitely a impending doom aspect to this story. But our main character is Alina Starkov, who is an orphan and is raised in a children's home with her friend Mal. And she discovers that, kind of in an unexpected event, that she has very unique magical abilities. And based on that, she is kind of thrown into the world of the Grisha, who is the elite group of people in this world that have magical powers. So she is taken to a different place and starts going to classes and learning about her powers. And she discovers that her powers could be the solution to destroying the Shadowfold. But while she is there learning about the Grisha and her powers, she attracts the attention of the Darkling, who is the most powerful Grisha there is, and he's kind of the leader of the Grisha. I'm not going to tell you much more than that because I don't want to give anything else away, but that's kind of the premise of this book. It is book 1 of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and Leigh Bardugo also wrote the Six of Crows duology, and the stories in both of these combined are going to be the premise of the Shadow and Bone TV series that is going to be releasing on Netflix on April 23rd, 2021. So I am super excited about that. It was published by Macmillan Publishers on June 5th, 2012. So it's been out a little while. And the people who would be interested in reading this book, I definitely think it would be considered a young adult, a fantasy novel. And according to commonsensemedia.org, it is recommended for readers age 13 and older. There are some violence and mild language in this book that affects that. It won the ALA Award for Best Fiction for Young Adults in 2013. And from my personal experience reading the book, I think that it has great world building, and I definitely became emotionally attached to the characters. And there was definitely some surprising twists throughout the book, especially as you got toward the end. And I love a good twist, a good plot twist that kind of keeps me turning the page and wanting more. So based on all of those thoughts that I've had about this book, I will rank Shadow and Bone as good. So we're going to leave it there. Fable is the second book that I read in December, and that is right here. And Fable is a young adult pirate adventure story that focuses on Fable, the main character. When she was a child, her mother died, and her father, who is the most powerful captain in the Narrows, leaves her on a dangerous island, just abandons her. And so she is forced to kind of raise herself and fend for herself and figure out how to survive on this island that is full of thieves and has very little food. And she does survive, and kind of in a bit of trouble that she gets in, she convinces a young trader named Wes to get her off of the island and help her find her father, which is a little difficult because she keeps bringing up there's a golden rule. She doesn't bring it up to West, but in her narrative, she brings up that there is a golden rule that her father always told her as a child, and that is to never tell anyone that she is his daughter. So that does complicate things a little bit. But Fable gets caught up in the world and politics of trading, and she becomes entangled in her father's web of lies and deception. And on top of that, Fable discovers that West isn't exactly who he says he is either. So that definitely adds to the mystery and intrigue of this book. There is a sequel coming out very soon on March 16th of 2021. It is called Namesake, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. This book was written by Adrian Young, and it was published by Wednesday Books on September 1st, 2020. So it is still a fairly new book, and the sequel's not coming out too long after it was released, which is a good thing. It would be considered a young adult fantasy adventure novel and would be recommended for readers ages 12 and up. There are some bits of violence and language, and there is an aspect of romance in this book. It was nominated for the Goodreads Choice Award for Young Adult Fantasy and Science Fiction in 2020, and it is a Reese Witherspoon Hello Sunshine Book Club YA pick, which is pretty cool. Out of over 13,000 ratings on Goodreads, it currently has a 4.17 out of 5 rating. So kind of my own personal thoughts on this book. I was pleasantly surprised by this book. It had great character development. I became really attached to Fable and was impressed with her resourcefulness and drive to survive, which I thought made her a really cool character. I had never read a pirate adventure story before, so I was just captivated by this book, and I loved how I felt like I was on a pirate adventure while I was reading the book, and I love being able to escape into stories. So this book definitely did that for me. It was fast-paced, kept me wanting to turn the pages, and it was really hard for me to put down. It didn't take very long for me to finish this book. There were a lot of plot twists, and I felt like Adrian Young did a great job of releasing information at the right time during the story so that it had you kind of on the edge of your seat till the end. And the ending was a serious cliffhanger. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but let's just say I read this book thinking that the sequel was already out, and I was very devastated to find out that it wasn't out yet, and I had to wait for it because I need to know what happens. So based on all of those aspects of the book, I'm going to rank Fable as amazing. All right, so moving along to the third and last book that I read in December, we are going to be looking at A Court of Frost and Starlight. So this book is a novella that is supposed to bridge the gap between the first 3 books in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series and the next ones that will be coming out, because the next set of books will have a focus on different main characters. But I'm going to give a summary of the first book in the series, just in case you haven't read it, because if I give you a summary of this specific book, there might be some spoilers. So in A Court of Thorns and Roses, we have a main character whose name is Feyre Archeron. She lives in the world of Prythian, which is divided by a wall that separates the fairy realm from the humans. She is a human, so she lives in the human realm, and while she is out hunting for her family for food to help them survive, she kills a wolf, and because she kills a specific wolf, she is kidnapped by one of the faerie into the land of Prythian, where she is kind of held captive for a while. And while she's there, she learns a lot about the fairy realm and the courts and how they work, and she finds out that there is a long-established curse, and there's also a sinister plot that could change Prythian forever. So I'm not going to give much more than that because I don't want to ruin anything for you. But this book was written by Sarah J. Maas. I believe that's how you say her name. And it was published by Bloomsbury YA on May 1st, 2018. And as far as age level, this would definitely be considered a young adult fantasy. It has themes of violence and language, and it also has some sexual themes in it. So I would recommend this book for readers that are at least 16 or older for those reasons. And according to Goodreads, it was a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for YA Fantasy and Science Fiction in 2018. It does have over 167,000 ratings on Goodreads, and it currently has a 3.87 out of 5 rating. I love this series. I read all of the A Court of Thorns and Roses series in 2020. That was my quarantine pandemic survival series. That's what got me through being quarantined at home. But I didn't read A Court of Frost and Starlight until December. And I think it was a really great addition to the series, and I definitely think that it will help to bridge that gap into the next book that is going to be released tomorrow. It is A Court of Silver Flames. I'm super excited about that. And it was a perfect winter read as well. We are introduced to Prithian's Christmas festival, but they don't call it Christmas. So it was the perfect book for me to read over my Christmas break away from school. I will say this novella was not as action-packed as the other books were, and it could be considered boring. I know I've read reviews from other readers who said that they found this one to be boring, but I feel like the sentimental value of the book, and it was emotionally driven, and I think that's why I liked it so much. But because it lacked on the action, I am going to rank it as okay. So now I'm going to get into the books that I read in January. And the first book that I read for this year was Red Queen. And I have to be totally honest, I started reading this book last July, but I started it on audiobook. And I found out that I was not a fan of reading this book on audio. I had a little bit of an issue getting into the book, and I think a lot of that had to do with the narrator, but I ended up switching over to Kindle and finished it that way. But I actually finished it in January, so I'm considering this my first book that I finished in 2021. But this book is set in a world called Norta, and in this world, social rank is determined by the color of a person's blood. So people with red blood were considered inferior. People with silver blood are considered to be elite or high class or worthy of royalty, because silvers also possessed special powers. So our main character is Mare Barrow. She is a red who grows up in the Stilts, which is one of the poorest places in Norta, with her family. But through a series of events, she discovers that she actually has some of these powers that are thought to only be possessed by silvers. So she is whisked away into the world of the silvers, where she has to pretend that she is a long-lost princess, silver princess, who has become recently engaged to one of the princes. And through this, she has to go to classes and learn about her powers, and she learns a lot about silvers and how the political system in her country works. And she also discovers that there is a rebel group called the Red Guard who is planning a revolution against the tyrannical rule of the silvers. So she does become involved in that, and I'm not going to give away any more than that. But this book was written by Victoria Aveyard. It is book 1 in a 4-book series, and it was published by Harper Teen in 2015. According to commonsensemedia.org, it is recommended for readers age 13 and older based on some of the violence and language that is used in the book. And it did receive the 2015 Goodreads Choice Award for Best Debut Author, and it was nominated for the 2017 California Young Reader Medal in the category of Young Adult. On Goodreads, it has over 608,000 ratings with a 4.04 out of 5 rating. And according to my personal opinions, I started reading it as an audiobook, and I was not super fond of the narrator, but I did finish the book in ebook, and I thought the ending was great. So I'm not sure if it was slow because it really was slow in the beginning and picked up toward the end, or if I just had trouble getting into it, the audiobook at the beginning, and the end was better because I used Kindle. So I'm not quite sure, but based on those thoughts that I've had about this book, I am going to leave it in the okay rank. So the next book that I read in January was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. And this book is about Jude Duarte, who is a human, and she and her twin sister are born to a human mother and father, but their older sister Vivian has a different father. And he shows up on their doorstep one day randomly and murders both of Jude's parents. That was quite an intense way of starting a book. And that's not a spoiler because it happens at the very beginning. But after that, Vivian's father whisks all three of the children away to fairyland where he raises them. So Jude is part of this new world that coexists with the human world, just in a different dimension almost. And she only wants to belong there. She's trying to find kind of her place in the land of fairy, even though she is human. But the cruel Prince Carden, makes that very difficult for her. Fairies in this world look down upon humans, and Prince Carden is very cruel to humans, and Jude starts a rivalry with him that could jeopardize her finding her place in this world. This book was published by Little Brown Books for young readers on December 4th, 2018, and according to commonsensemedia.org, it is recommended for readers 14 and up due to some of the intense, descriptive, violent language. It was a finalist for the Lodestar Award and won second place in the Locus Awards, and also won the Inky Award in 2019. On Goodreads, it has over 270,000 ratings and currently has a 4.11 out of 5. I thought this book had incredible world building. It definitely was neat to see how Holly Black meshed the world of fairy with our typical modern day human world. It made it feel like I could just turn a corner in my own neighborhood and walk right into the world of fairy. So I thought that was kind of a neat aspect of the story. It was a gripping story, very intense action, and I became very emotionally connected to the characters. So I'm excited to read the second book because I do have that book. I just haven't started it yet, and it is The Wicked King. So I definitely think this will be a series that I enjoy reading all of. And based on all of those things, and I really, really did love reading this book. It was a great escape for me. So I think I'm going to also rank this book up there with Fable at amazing. Moving on to the next book that we're going to be ranking today, I am going to go with Mighty Jack and the Goblin King. This, I believe, was one of the last books that I read in January. It was also my first graphic novel, which is a new focus of mine here in 2021. I'm hoping to read some more graphic novels and learn more about this genre. So this is the one I started with that I had in my own school library that has been very popular with some of my students. And this book is the sequel to Mighty Jack. It's a middle grade graphic novel. This book picks up where I'm assuming the first book left off. But since I didn't read it, I don't know that for sure. But it seems like it starts kind of right in the middle of the action. So Jack is our main character, and his sister Maddie has been kidnapped into this strange new world that's full of terrifying creatures. And it's up to Jack and his friend Lily to find her and save her. And kind of throughout this process, they do have some seeds from a magical plant. I'm assuming it's supposed to be like beans, like Jack and the Beanstalk, because I think this is supposed to be a retelling of Jack and the Beanstalk. So they have these seeds that give them powers when they eat them that kind of helps them deal with the challenges of being in this new world to find and save Maddie. And it was written by Ben Hatke and published by First Second on September 15th, 2017. It is recommended by commonsensemedia.org for readers that are 8 and older. It does have some positive messages, but includes some scariness and violence and a little bit of language. It is currently listed on YALSA's list of great graphic novels for teens, and it was selected as a Junior Library Guild selection book for 2012 through 2020. On Goodreads, it has over 2,800 ratings with a 4.28 out of 5. And this was my first graphic novel. I did love the action. It was very action-packed and kind of kept me wanting to read more. But I think I would have liked it better if I had read the first book first. I think that the first book probably had more of the world building and would have laid that foundation that I needed to truly understand the story and the characters, which I missed out on because I didn't read the first book. It wasn't available at my library when I wanted to read it. So I would not recommend reading this series out of order. But based on all of those things and the fact that I am still missing a chunk of the story and I don't fully understand all of it, I'm going to rank the Mighty Jack and the Goblin King as meh. It was okay. I think maybe I would have liked it better if I had read the first book, but for what it is by itself, without the other book, I'm going to rank it as meh. So now we are on to the last two books that we're going to rank today, and these are books that I've read so far in February. The first one that we're going to talk about is When Stars Are Scattered. Right here. It is by Victoria Jameson and Omar Muhammad, who is also one of the characters in the book. It is a graphic novel, and it is a true story of Omar Muhammad and his brother Hassan, who were two brothers who ran away from their home in Somalia as refugees during civil unrest, and they lived in a refugee camp. The story is told through emotionally packed illustrations and powerful words. It was published by Dial Books on April 14th, 2020, and is recommended for readers that are 9 through 12, and that's by Amazon, but I can tell you that from my personal experience reading it, I feel like this story would be good for anybody. It could even be read with younger students. It does have some very real world challenges that people face in our world that could be kind of scary for younger kids, but if I feel like read with an adult, or having an adult that they can talk through some of the things that are talked about in there, it could be read by children younger than 9 years old. But I definitely think that older students, teachers, adults would also be interested in reading this book, because it does help the reader to kind of open their minds and their hearts to some of the things that are going on in our world. It has received a lot of awards so far, and I'm just going to go through and list what I found, or what is listed on the Amazon page for this book. So When Stars Are Scattered was a National Book Award finalist. It also won the Schneider Family Book Award for middle school honor. It is a YALSA Great Graphic Novel for Teens, a YALSA Quick Pick for reluctant young adult readers. It is a YALSA Excellence in Nonfiction nominee. It won the Walter Award for Young Readers. It is an Amazon Best Children's Book of 2020. It is a New York Times Book Review Notable Children's Book, a Time Best Book of the Year, School Library Journal's Best Book of 2020, Kirkus Best Children's Book of 2020, NYPL Best Book for Kids, NPR's Book Concierge Pick. It is a Jane Addams Children's Book Award finalist, a Charlotte Huck Award honor book, a 2021 ALSC Notable Children's Book List pick. It is also a 2021 Josette Frank Award winner, and it is on the 2021 Notable Books for a Global Society list. Whew, what a mouthful. So it is definitely being recognized, and for very good reason. On Goodreads, it has over 6,500 ratings with a 4.67 out of 5. That's a really high rating. And really the one word that I could think of when I thought about my review for this book is just wow. It has been a really long time since I've read a book that took me on such an emotional roller coaster, and I'm tearing up just talking about this book. But it moved me deeply with the pictures and the words and the story that was being told throughout. And I could not imagine that the next book that would kind of move me so emotionally would be a graphic novel, which I'm still very new to. This is only my second graphic novel that I've read. And I was just really impressed with the story. While I was reading it, I didn't realize it was a true story. But I did know that it was a true story for many people who are out there, who are refugees from civil unrest, dealing with the hardships that are mentioned in this story. So when I did find out that it was a true story, it just tugged at my heart even more. And even though there's a lot of hardship and a lot of heartache mentioned in this story, it truly is a story of hope. And I love that kind of the good can be seen in spite of all of the challenges. And I think it has a great message for readers. I cannot wait to get this book for my school library. So based on all of that I just talked about, I would rank this one as amazing. All right, so the last book that we're going to rank today is a book that I just finished yesterday, and it is Magnus Chase. and the Gods of Asgard, Book 1, The Sword of Summer, written by Rick Riordan, who is the author of the Percy Jackson series. This book is based on the main character, Magnus Chase, who is a kid living on the street. His mother was killed by some supernatural wolves that showed up at his apartment or house, and he never knew his father, so he's just kind of trying to survive out on the streets by himself, and he recalls that his mother warned him pretty intensely about his Uncle Randolph, but she never got a chance to tell him why he should stay away from him. But on his birthday, he is drawn to Uncle Randolph's mansion. So he ends up going to his mansion where he finds a ton of Viking artifacts and his Uncle Randolph, who starts talking a little crazy about their family connection with the Norse gods. And some other things happened, and he ends up on a bridge battling a fire giant, and he finds the Sword of Summer. It basically comes to him from the river below the bridge, and he dies. But that's not the end of the story, and it's not a spoiler because it happens at the beginning. But once he dies, he is chosen by a Valkyrie named Sam to enter Valhalla, which in this book is a hotel, and that's it's really funny how that works out. But while he's in Valhalla, he begins this epic journey to save the 9 worlds and prevent Ragnarok from happening. It, like I said, was written by Rick Riordan, and it was published by Disney Hyperion on October 6, 2015, and Amazon recommends it for children ages 8 to 12. This book won the 2015 Goodreads Choice Award for middle grade and children's fiction, and also on Goodreads it has 161,000 ratings, and currently has a rating of 4.22 out of 5. So I've never read Percy Jackson before, and I kind of picked this book up because the Rick Riordan books are super popular in my school library, especially with my 3rd through 5th graders, really popular with my 4th graders this year. And I just kind of wanted to see what they're all about and why the kids were so interested in them. But I'm more interested in Norse mythology rather than Greek or Roman mythology. So that's why I chose Magnus Chase first. And from what I could tell, I really didn't miss a whole lot from the story in doing that. I know some of my students are like, no, you have to read Percy Jackson first. But there are very minor connections between the series, but not enough to make me feel like I was really missing a lot of the story. And I do think that Magnus Chase as a character was very relatable to maybe children, students that I know, but he does have some childish humor that I could see being very appealing to middle grade readers, but as an adult just wasn't very appealing to me. And I could definitely see why my students love these books with the humor and the sarcasm and the intense action that kind of takes place in these stories. So based on all of that, I would rank Magnus Chase as okay, considering myself as an adult reader. It wasn't the best book that I've ever read, and some of the humor I didn't find very entertaining, but there were some parts that I did kind of chuckle out loud, so I'm just going to rank it as okay. So that is our tier ranking for today, and those are all the books that I've read since December of 2020. And if you haven't already and you like videos like this, definitely like this video, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload other bookish videos. And if you have any comments that you'd like to share about these books, if you agree with my ranking or disagree, I'd love to hear it. Drop a comment below, and I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.